Alright, ladies and gentlemen, BAF 002, first podcast show, whatever, for Masterminds. What we're doing here is I've got a basic thing set up here. It's going to become a track. It's going to become kind of a techno track, I think. I don't know. We'll see where the fuck it goes. I'm not entirely sure myself. But what I really want to demonstrate in this video is the Sub 37. It's fucking awesome. I have an init patch, which stands for initialization. I want to show you guys a lot about synthesis, because that's kind of my bag. So what we're going to do here is I've set up a basic drum pattern. It's really just a 4-on-the-floor techno kick at 128 beats per minute. And then what we're going to do after that is we're going to tweak this sound until it's fat. And we have just like kind of a playful tone built up, and we're gonna allow it to ride out, and we're gonna tweak the knobs and make it do some fun stuff. It's all analog. It's the Moog Sub 37, which is one of the best synths I've ever heard. If you're into subtractive synthesis, you already know this. And then after that, we'll see where it goes. So right now, it's time to start tweaking. So here is the pattern we have set up, and get ready to hear a lot of it. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take everything out. And then I'm going to start building things back in. So we're going to work with just one oscillator here. And this first oscillator is, we're just going to throw it in, we're going to build it up in the mix, and then we're going to throw a second oscillator in, and then we're going to start working with the filter and the envelopes and everything. But for now, we're just going to bring that first oscillator and really determine what kind of sound we want. Bring in a sub. Alright, so the Moog Sub 37 has something called continuously variable oscillators. Continuously variable oscillators, instead of what you're used to if you use a VST or something, what they do is they take the electricity and they allow you to morph between each waveform. So instead of going from square to ramp, everything in between is totally continuous, and you have the entire infinite continuum based on how many electrons are flowing through this sucker. So you build up resistance by turning the knob on the oscillator as opposed to just selecting a totally different preset. It's a totally cool feature. It means you can go to like a supersaw and add a little bass by bringing it down to a triangle. And that's actually what we're doing here with this first oscillator. Alright, so here we have a traditional sawtooth. I'm going to let it grind by being down low like that. I'm going to bring in another oscillator now. You know what? I can make this even cooler to look at. So the Sub 37 comes with a VST. It's an editor. It just communicates over MIDI. So while I'm tweaking over here, you'll be able to actually see me doing the tweaking on screen because it should move everything. And it does. So perfecto. This will be more fun now. Alright, so now I'm going to add some pulse width modulation. Now, when you're talking about pulse width modulation, what you're really talking about is you're talking about a square wave that has, instead of a 50% on-off pulse, you have a much lower than. And if you actually extend it out beyond 50%, it becomes less. There's a little bit of math there. The point is when you start taking it, but you sync it to the beat, so it's still having the same number of frequency moments. So the same exact frequency, if you're doing 400 frequency, whatever that note is, A440. But within each frequency, you can move around each one, so it's just the sum average. It creates a really awesome sound. So we're going to do that, but on this, instead of it being called pulse width modulation, all you're really doing is you can see right here, oscillator to wave has been set up so that it's attached to the LFO. I'm going to sync the LFO. Oscillator 2 wave is now going to move around oscillator number 2's wave, and it's going to make this continuously variable wave non-stop moving. It should make it an interesting modulation and should make it lively to listen to. But I'm not really going to touch oscillator 1 because what I don't want to have happen is I don't want to lose that kind of grind that we have going on the low end. Dig it? Let's go. Alright, so what we have happening there is I set it up so it's going to a square wave, so it's all on, all off, and then I have the modulation amount quite high. So, and then I have it sync to keyboard reset, so every time the keyboard's hitting, it's resetting the actual square wave phase. Alright, so the cool thing about this is that it's gonna really, in rhythm, modulate the sound. Now, I'm gonna actually come off that for a second, and I'm gonna do something to it. I'm gonna go into high range, which will take the low frequency oscillator into an audible range. So what we're going to do now is totally fucking cool, and the sub 37 is really good for this. So we're going to actually take the modulation of the waveform, and we're going to go into audible range, and we're going to use the mod 2 source and the LFO as an oscillator, and it's going to create its own tone. This will be cool. Watch. Now we're going to take LFO1 and we're going to use it to modulate LFO2, which is in high range. This is going to be cool too. to bring back in the other sound now. Okay, now what we're going to do here is I'm going to now take the filter and I'm going to play with it. So Sub 37 has the classic Moog ladder filter. Classic Moog ladder filter does the classic way of doing it is, so this one has 24 roll off on the dB peak. 18 is what you could think of as like your rolling acid. 12 is classic mini Moog, and 6 is really gentle, good for pads. So we're gonna, since that's who I am, we're gonna take it to 18. We're gonna emulate the 303 on this. We're gonna pull it down. We're gonna start playing with resonance in order to get some harmonics, and we're gonna throw an envelope on there as well. And I might tie it up to LFO. We'll see. Alright, I want to explain what I'm doing here because this is something that analog synths don't usually do. Alright, so if you take a look at our envelope generator for, this is our envelope generator that affects the filter, right, because it has the F right there. Alright, so the sync and the loop. Basically turn this into a custom LFO that you're able to just continuously run through. So by putting loop on, that means that the timing that you're actually doing is based on the values that you have in the envelope generator. And then you hit sync and it syncs to the project tempo. All right, so that's all I'm doing there, but it gives us an entirely other LFO to work with on the filter. All right, so I'm going to keep on playing with that. I have a pretty cool groove going here, and what I really want to be able to do is I want to be able to drop it down and open it up later in the track, so that way later in the track something really fat happens. So here we go. Alright, so there are now a couple different things I can do to perform this. The first is I'm going to be able to twist the mod 2 amount on my LFO2 in order to accentuate that rhythmic beat that we have going on the actual oscillator 2 waveform change. The second is, by doing that, we're also going to move the pitch around, so we're going to make it even more wild. We can open and close the filter, and we can put more or less envelope on. Here's how it'll sound. Alright, so I think we have a pretty decent beat. What I'm going to call this, since this is feeling like it's emerging, is a bit of a house song. So I'm going to call it such. So we're going to save this into my own personal library. I'm going to call it Cold as Ice. House patch 17. Boom. Alright, that's what we got on this one. So that's how you come from an initialization patch to something that actually sounds pretty fucking cool. You don't always have to do that. There's nothing wrong with using presets. But the thing is if you only use presets, you're giving away a lot of the creativity and you're not customizing it. So now I'm going to add something. What I kind of heard going on in my head was like some kind of dragging guitars, like kind of thing. So I want to put something like that with some good rhythm over the top. So I'm going to patch it in. I'm going to use something from Contact, I think. And we'll see if I'm able to come up with anything good. Also, let's save the set. Now I'm going to throw some side chaining on that bass line that we created, give it a real modern sound. And then we're going to wrap up the session for today. So to do this, I'm going to just take Ableton's compressor. If you don't know how to sidechain, it's dead easy. You just throw this in here, you pick where it's coming from. In this case, it's coming from the audio track because it's where I have the kick. Gonna go a little bit longer. I'm not entirely sure that I love that contact. I like the sidechain, but I'm not totally sold on this stuff. So hold on. I'm gonna throw Omnisphere in here. If you've never used Omnisphere, it's a synth, man. So Omnisphere is, I bought it because there's so many synths out there that I'll never own. There's classic synths. There's stuff that I've, spent my entire music making life drooling over, all these vintage things. And what they did here is they did a meticulously beautiful sampling of all of them. Okay, so that's Omnisphere. It has tons of samples. It also has a gorgeous filter. It has a granular engine. It has a huge effects section. So this is some pretty significant stuff here. What I'm going to go for is they sampled a ton of guitars. I'm going to see if I can get something with some nice effect on it that I can play over what I have. Woo! Not exactly what I was looking for, but it's pretty awesome. Alright, I have some stuff to figure out there, but we're going to call it for the day, for the video. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.